Today, I want to challenge the way that you think about spending money on marketing because I see so many e-commerce founders doing the same thing. They'll happily spend money trying to make a sale today, but they won't spend a few dollars a day building an audience that they can sell to tomorrow. And I think that's a little backwards. If you've followed me for a while, you'll know that I have a love-hate relationship with paying for ads. Look, when I first started my e-commerce business right back in the beginning, I largely gained traction organically and grew to six figures through mastering email marketing. There were other things that I did for sure, but email marketing was one of the biggest levers of growth in my business. So I went on to create a group coaching program teaching email marketing. And later, I didn't really plan this, to be honest, but it evolved into me now running my own email marketing agency. And recently, I kind of noticed a shift inside my group coaching program. Now, you need traffic to make sales, and getting traffic had become hard unless you were willing to pay for it. And having personally run ads myself, having coached others, as well as investing in formal training to master ads, I knew that when my students were struggling to get the traffic that they needed to reach their sales goals, that I had to teach them how to run ads at a budget that they could afford. Beyond list growth ads, that has always been a core part of my program, but they needed more than list growth, right? So I created a course, my Seen, Clicked, Sold course, that taught them exactly how to do that. And I started to get feedback from some of them who had implemented that course into their business, that they had actually broken past some plateaus. Nina had her biggest ever sales month. Jess had started a new brand and was finally seeing consistent sales after struggling so hard to get her brand seen. Now, I genuinely believe that in 2026, that one of the fastest ways to grow an e-com business is to actually do meta ads. But not all meta ads have the same job. Most people think that meta ads exist to generate sales, and sometimes, look, they do. But one of the smartest campaigns you can ever run has nothing to do with making an immediate sale. Its job is much simpler than that. It's there to quietly grow your email list every single day while you're making dinner, while you're packing orders, while you're taking the kids to school or to the park or even sleeping, right? Your campaign is working in the background, just ticking away, finding people who are genuinely interested in what you sell and inviting them to join your world, to get on your email list. And that's a very different way to think about marketing, because instead of paying for one website visit, you're investing in a future relationship. Now, I think that's one of the biggest mindset shifts e-commerce founders need to make. Marketing isn't just about today's revenue. It's about building tomorrow's opportunities. Every person who joins your email list is someone that you can speak to again, without paying Meta again, right? Think about that for a second. You pay once to acquire a subscriber, but every email you send after that becomes another opportunity to generate traffic back to your website for free. Now, that is incredibly powerful, because here's what most e-commerce businesses are doing. They run an ad, someone visits their website, maybe they buy, maybe they don't, and if they don't, that's often the end of the relationship. The business owner then goes back into Ads Manager, pays for another visitor and another, and they're constantly renting attention. Now, imagine a different scenario. Someone sees your ad, and instead of asking them to buy immediately, you invite them to join your email list because you've created something genuinely valuable for them in return, right? You're going to give them something. Might be a free download, it might be entry to a giveaway, it might be asking them to apply to be a product tester, but you're inviting them to put their hand up and say, I'm interested in what you sell. Now they raise their hand and join your email list, which means that they've said, yes, I'd like to hear more. You haven't just earned a click, you've earned permission. Permission to show up in their inbox, permission to build trust, permission to introduce your products over time, and permission to create multiple buying opportunities. That changes everything, right? Because your business is no longer relying on Instagram deciding whether someone sees your next post or hoping Meta finds the same person again. You've moved the conversation onto ground that you actually own. I want you to think about your email list like a traffic tap. Every time you send an email, you are turning that traffic tap on because people visit your website. They click through from your email and they're visiting your website. They browse, some will buy, and there's no extra ad spend required. That's why I don't see a low-cost list growth campaign as an expense. I see it as an investment in future traffic and future successful launches, future sales, future repeat customers. They're the most valuable, right? It's one of the few marketing activities that keeps paying you back long after you've spent the money. Now, does that mean every person on your list will buy? Of course it doesn't, right? But they can't buy if they don't know about you. And that's the whole point. You're creating more opportunities, more conversations, more chances to stay visible. Earlier this week, I was thinking about the difference between rented attention and owned attention. And social media is rented, right? Meta ads are rented. You don't own those platforms. The algorithm decides who sees your content. The platform decides how much it costs you to reach people. But your email list, you own that. That is yours, right? Nobody can take that relationship away from you. And that's why I believe that every e-commerce business should be building one. Even if you're just starting out. Actually, especially if you're just starting out. And even if your budget is teeny tiny, right? In the beginning, it is often teeny tiny. Imagine adding just a handful of genuinely interested subscribers every single day. 5 today, that might compound to 7 tomorrow, 10 the next day. It doesn't sound very exciting, but over months, that compounds. Suddenly you've got hundreds, then thousands of people who know your brand and have invited you into their inbox. That's not just a list, that becomes a business asset. So if you're thinking about spending money on marketing, here's my advice. Don't just ask, how do I make more sales today? Ask, how do I build an audience that helps me make sales tomorrow and next month and next year? Because that's what sustainable e-commerce businesses do. They don't just buy traffic, they build an audience alongside that traffic, right? You still need traffic to make sales, but build something that you also own. And that audience becomes one of the most valuable assets in your business. And you don't need to spend hundreds of dollars a day to start growing your list. Start with just $5 a day. We are primed to expect instant results, right? But this is where I think we need to change our thinking. Hopefully, my long-term listeners know that I love systems. That's why this podcast is called Six Figure Systems, because it's systems that support your growth without manual effort being involved. Now, having a low-cost lead ad ticking along in the background is a system, right? And it's one system that I think every single one of you should have set up in your business, with one big caveat. You want this to be somewhat set and forget, right? You set it up, you ensure that it's optimized, it's getting you the lowest cost per lead, and you leave it be. The beauty with lead ads is that they are somewhat stable. Unlike sales ads that can be a little more volatile, and you obviously need to spend a little more time closely monitoring those. But lead ads, once they're set up and they're optimized, just keep adding people to your list And slowly that list grows from teeny tiny to a decent size where you'll start to see that every time you send an email, you predictably get sales back, which is why I wish I had set one up right at the beginning of when I started my business. I would have grown my list faster whilst I worked on all the other bits that I needed to, whilst I worked everything else out, right? It's probably one of my biggest regrets in business, and what I would do differently if I could start over again is that I didn't set this up right at the start. I think because I just didn't appreciate the value of an email list. I didn't appreciate that an email list has the highest ROI out of all marketing. So it makes sense to put some marketing spend behind it and to let it compound, right? Day after day after day, week after week, year after year. Now, your list may be small and may not be getting sales because it is so small. But when she grows, it's a bit like a snowball rolling down a hill. It starts off insignificant, but as it compounds and it rolls down the hill further, it starts growing. And I can tell you that you get to the point where you do see consistent sales, and then those sales continue to compound and grow. As your list gets bigger, the bigger your list, the bigger your revenue. But it does take time, right? And this is where people often give up too soon. They think, my email list isn't converting, but it's because it's so small. It's just the volume. It's not your email list. It's not the quality of your audience. It's not the emails that you're sending them. It's just you haven't given it enough time. And this is why I say it needs to be set and forget, right? It does take time, especially depending on your budget, right? If your budget is small, and it likely is in the beginning, then it's going to take time, right? But I can tell you, if you're only relying on your website visitors to join your list, it's going to take you so much longer to see that compound effect. Because at best, you're going to get around 10% of your visitors will sign up to your form, usually much lower than that. I aim for a minimum of a 5% submit rate. So 5% of traffic or 5% of people who see my pop-up, at a minimum, I want to get onto my email list. So if you have 100 visitors a day, maximum you're going to get 5 people a day. But you can fast track that with a really low cost lead ad that can really amplify that and accelerate the growth of your list really, really quickly. And in the beginning, the reason I didn't see sales from my email list is that it was just too small to match my conversion rate. It needed to grow to see sales. And when it did, it became the most reliable way to get seen, to get traffic, and to get those sales. I do believe that you do have to invest to grow, because these days growing organically is bloody hard. Not impossible, but it is very hard to just grow organically. And I'm not sure about you, but I didn't start my business to work harder than I did in my corporate job. I started my businesses for freedom. So if I can take a shorter route to reach my goals, I totally will. And yes, that does involve a little bit of marketing spend, but not a huge amount. This is not about saying you have to spend thousands, far from that. But you do have to invest something, right? Or you at least have to solve 2 problems. You have to solve getting seen, so your business has to be visible, and you have to solve getting traffic, because you can't get sales without solving those 2 things. People don't know about you and they don't visit your website, you can't make sales, right? It's impossible. And meta ads help you to do that, even on a budget of $5 a day. Start small and slowly scale your marketing spend as your sales start growing, right? For those of you who have never run ads to fast track the growth of your list, just know that I'm currently building something for you. I will share more when I can, but if fast tracking the growth of your email list is something you want to set and forget, then stay tuned. So look, this is what I want to leave you with today. Growing your email list is one of the smartest things that you can do to future-proof your business. You need a system that is set and forget, that gives you a predictable way to add subscribers to your list every single day, regardless of the traffic your website gets or how much of that traffic your pop-up converts. Start growing a list as soon as you can, because every subscriber fills your traffic tap. And it's a way to ring-fence your future buyers who may not be ready to buy from you today, but will be ready at some point. Successful business owners aren't just chasing today's sales. They're building systems that bring in tomorrow's sales. They're building systems that compound over time. Now, that may not sound very sexy, but trust me, you'll think your bank account is sexy when that compound effect starts happening. And because it's set and forget, it's short-term effort for long-term results. It's a no-brainer. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. I hope you found this episode insightful and it stretched your thinking around whether you should commit a little bit of your marketing spend to growing your list and future-proofing your business. Thanks for joining me. See you again next week.